At the dawn of the 20th century, Germany was a success story. Railways wove the country together like a steel web. Factories operated day and night without pause. As Berlin's streets were lit with electricity, the names Siemens and Bayer became symbols of a new era. Machinery, reason, and discipline were turning Germany into an industrial giant, a land of the future. Karl Benz's automobile was on the roads. Bayer's pills were healing the world. Krupp's steel cannons symbolized the power of an empire. From Berlin to Cologne, from Hamburg to Munich, everyone believed Germany had already claimed its place in the sun. But that place in the sun would come with a shadow. Germany emerged on the stage of history not only as a unified state with the proclamation of the empire at the Palace of Versailles on January 18, 1871. This unification, achieved through Prussia's military victories, brought with it serious internal and external political challenges that needed resolution. It possessed a complex political structure and a fragile balance. The empire included no fewer than 25 separate states. This fragmentation continued to be felt even after unification. Prussia was dominant, but regions like Bavaria, Saxony, and Württemberg maintained their distinct identities. The Catholic South kept its distance from the Protestant North. The urban bourgeoisie built cultural and class barriers against the rural peasantry. Minorities such as Jews and Poles, though officially citizens, were not regarded as truly German. This multi-layered structure fed not only sociological tensions, but also political ones. Port cities like Hamburg and Bremen had embraced capitalism, while in the south, agriculture still held sway. Germany was less a nation-state than a collection of different worlds united under a common authority. Industrialization deeply transformed the social structure. The urban bourgeoisie became the main actors shaping economic and cultural life in the major cities, while millions of workers from the countryside concentrated in industrial centers. Cities like Berlin, Essen, and Dortmund became home to large working-class populations. Workers labored long hours in harsh conditions, while middle-class families lived in modern apartments in city centers. Working-class families resided in small, airless, and unhealthy homes. This stark contrast in living conditions and provided fertile ground for socialist ideas. The first 20 years of the empire were dominated by Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. His main domestic political goal was to consolidate the new unity established under Prussian hegemony. The reluctance of the Catholic states in the south led to fractures within the internal political fabric. Bismarck sought to strengthen central authority through the Kulturkampf policy, waged against the Catholic Church between 1871 and 1878. However, this effort ultimately backfired, resulting in the rise of the Catholic Centre Party. Bismarck also took harsh measures against the rapidly rising workers' movement. The Social Democratic Party, founded in 1875, quickly gained significant social support. Although parties like the SPD, the Catholic Centre Party, and the National Liberals held seats in the Reichstag, they had little influence over the executive branch. While parliamentary pluralism was developing, the structure of the constitutional monarchy did not permit a true democratic transformation. In Germany, although industry was the driving force of modernization, political control remained in the hands of one dominant class for a long time: the Junkers. Although the term originally meant young noble in medieval German, by the 19th century it referred to the conservative aristocratic class that owned vast estates, particularly in Eastern Prussia. Their estates were primarily located in the East Elbian region. Rye fields, large farms, and control over the peasantry formed the foundation of the Junkers' economic power. But their influence extended far beyond the land. The Junkers played a decisive role in the political and military structures of the German Empire. The upper echelons of the Kaiser's bureaucracy, the foreign ministry, and especially the military were largely filled with members of this class. The officer corps of the Prussian army was predominantly drawn from Junker families. Discipline, loyalty, and traditionalism shaped their outlook on both the army and the state. Bismarck himself was a Junker and one of the chief figures who brought the values of this class into the heart of state governance. While modern industrialists struggled to make their voices heard in Parliament, the Junkers retained political power independently of parliamentary arithmetic. Even as the rise of social democracy and the growing strength of the industrial bourgeoisie began to corner them over time, they would manage to retain their political influence until the very end of the empire. A new era for Germany and Europe would begin with the accession of Wilhelm II in 1888. The young Wilhelm became the German emperor, a figure full of contradictions. In what came to be known as the Year of the Three Emperors, he ascended the throne following the deaths of his grandfather, Wilhelm I, and shortly thereafter his father, Friedrich III. He was young, energetic, and ambitious. And perhaps most importantly, he was flawed. The congenital deformity in his left arm, shorter and underdeveloped, was more than just a physical limitation. Over the years, it would evolve into a deep-seated inferiority complex, a need to compensate, a constant desire to prove his strength to the outside world. Wilhelm was a monarch who felt like Napoleon one day and a Victorian gentleman the next, swinging between his emotions. His childhood was shaped by the influence of his English mother, Victoria, who had hoped to raise him as a liberal. However, in time, Wilhelm would come to resent both his mother and England itself. The young Kaiser had not taken part in the battles that had forged the German Empire. He failed to grasp that a state founded in blood and by the sword could only survive through diplomacy and restraint. He would reject Bismarck's authority and his cautious policy of realpolitik. To the young emperor, foreign policy was like a stage. Challenging Britain at sea, joining the colonial race in Africa, and engaging in diplomatic spats with Russia were not part of a coherent strategy. They were displays of power, mere showpieces. There was no trace of a planned, patient, or multilateral diplomacy. Almost allergic to the word strategy, the Kaiser would change his stance with every crisis, taking actions based on the suggestions of those around him. In 1890, he dismissed Bismarck, effectively altering Germany's course. Alongside Bernhard von Bülow, whom he called "my own Bismarck," he adopted a new foreign policy direction, Weltpolitik, or world policy. This policy aimed to transform Germany into a global empire, extending its influence far beyond Europe. In his famous speech to the Reichstag in 1897, Foreign Minister Bernhard von Bülow declared that Germany was seeking a place in the sun. However, this assertive stance would soon bring Germany into direct confrontation with Britain, France, and Russia. With the unification of the German state came the pathway to economic unification. The Zollverein German Customs Union, originally established in 1834, evolved after 1871 into a powerful economic framework encompassing nearly all German territories. The removal of customs barriers between the various states not only liberalized trade, but also laid the foundation for a common market. During this period, railways became the main arteries of industry. In the 1870s, the railway network stretched 20,000 kilometers. By the early 20th century, it had surpassed 60,000 kilometers. Ports were expanded, and transportation along rivers such as the Rhine and the Elbe was improved. The German domestic market came to resemble a nervous system tightly connected and highly responsive. From the 1880s onward, Germany emerged as a leading nation of the Second Industrial Revolution. The transformation in sectors such as chemicals, electricity, and heavy industry would soon propel Germany to technological supremacy. Major companies like Siemens, AEG, Krupp and Bayer stood out not only in Europe but also globally, thanks to their production and export capacities. Siemens and AEG became pioneers in electric appliances and urban electrification across Europe, with cities like Berlin becoming some of the first European metropolises to be illuminated by electricity. Germany's emphasis on technical education played a decisive role in this success. Polytechnic schools and institutes of applied science trained skilled engineers and technicians to serve industry directly. The collaboration between universities and industry would become a key driver in Germany's rise. Alongside traditional sectors like iron and coal, new industries such as chemicals, electricity, and mechanical engineering experienced significant breakthroughs. By the early 20th century, Germany's machinery exports had increased sixfold, and the label "Made in Germany" had become synonymous worldwide with quality, durability, and innovation. Another invention whose foundations were laid during those years would come to shape Germany's destiny. With the development of internal combustion engines, the foundations of the global automotive industry were being established, and its pioneers emerged in Germany. In 1885, Carl Benz designed the first gasoline-powered automobile in the city of Mannheim. This vehicle would go down in history as the Benz patent motor wagon. In 1886, his wife, Bertha Benz, famously drove it from Mannheim to Pforzheim, proving its reliability. Almost simultaneously, Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach began developing high-speed gasoline engines, working to make automobiles more efficient and widespread. Daimler Motorengesellschaft DMG introduced the brand Mercedes, naming their cars after the daughter of the company's Austrian distributor, Emil Jelinek. Germany's leadership in the chemical sector was even more pronounced. Companies like Bayer made groundbreaking advances not only in dyes and pharmaceuticals, but also in agricultural chemicals and synthetic products. Their research and development activities turned Germany into a global powerhouse that. Products like aspirin, developed by Bayer, gained worldwide recognition, not just for their medical value, but also for their economic impact. In the steel and heavy industry sectors, companies such as Krupp and Thyssen stood out. The Ruhr and Saar regions, rich in iron ore and coal, became the industrial heart of Germany. In steel production, Germany had become a major force, competing directly with the traditional industrial giants of Europe and beyond. Although Germany rose to prominence as an industrial nation, agriculture continued to hold significant importance. The vast estates owned by the Prussian aristocracy formed the core of rye and wheat production. In 1879, the Tarif Act introduced protective duties on imports. This led to the formation of the Coalition of Iron and Rye, an alliance between industrialists and large landowners that became the political foundation of the German economy. However, unlike Britain's free market model, Germany adopted a state-supported, bank-driven growth strategy. Institutions such as Deutsche Bank and Dresdner Bank provided substantial capital to newly founded companies. Germany also became a key player in foreign investments. Projects like the Baghdad Railway exemplified how Germany combined its economic strength with strategic diplomatic goals. The military played a crucial role in the construction of the new Germany. The German army was a foundational pillar of the state. The unification of Germany in 1871, led by Prussia, was achieved largely on the battlefield. As such, the newly established empire built its political legitimacy directly on the prestige of the military. This set the army-state relationship in Germany apart from that of other European countries. The German army became something of an ideological source for the new state. During Bismarck's era, respect for the military was institutionalized. Bismarck's foreign policy, based on diplomacy and balance, positioned the army as a limited but disciplined force. However, like many other aspects of the country, this understanding would change with the accession of Wilhelm II in 1888. Wilhelm's personal ambition transforming the empire into a global power turned the army into more than just a defensive institution. It became a tool for expansion and prestige. During this period, the German General Staff became one of the most professional and systematic planning institutions in all of Europe. The officers at its helm were responsible not only for operational planning, but also for shaping strategic vision and long-term political objectives. The military was not merely a war machine and ideology building. Helmuth von Moltke had modernized the Prussian army in the 1860s, developing a rapid movement strategy based on railway transportation. Another prominent figure in the German army before the war was Erich von Falkenhayn. Rising through the ranks of the War Ministry bureaucracy, Falkenhayn became known for his commitment to technological modernization. He led reforms in military education, enhanced the technical competence of officers, and integrated new battlefield technologies into the army. The Prussian War Academy became one of the most prestigious officer schools in Europe. It trained not only German officers, but also military personnel from neighboring countries, including the Ottoman Empire. The German army had also become one of the most technically advanced forces of its time. In areas such as artillery, machine guns, communication equipment, gas masks, and field telephones, Germany led Europe in military innovation. The heavy artillery produced by the Krupp Company, including mobile batteries that could be transported by rail, provided the army with a high degree of operational flexibility. The systematic construction of military railway lines ensured troop mobility. On the naval front, Germany experienced a systematic expansion beginning in 1898 with the passage of the naval laws. Under the leadership of Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz, the Tirpitz Plan was developed, aiming to build a fleet capable of challenging Britain's naval supremacy. This plan triggered a full-scale battleship race, and the Imperial Navy soon became the second largest navy in Europe. But the consequences of this build-up extended far beyond technology. The naval race played a crucial role in the lead-up to the Great War. Aware that Germany's naval expansion was directed against them, the British responded by accelerating their own naval development, most notably with the launch of the HMS Dreadnought, a revolutionary warship that reset the balance of naval power. Diplomatic steps accompanied these military developments. The naval arms race was a major factor in the formation of the Triple Entente in 1907. As Germany expanded its sea power in pursuit of its Weltpolitik, also found itself facing a growing number of adversaries. In the eyes of the public, the military was not just a war-making force, it was a symbol of national pride. Through the system of compulsory military service, every male citizen assumed the identity of a defender of the nation. For German youth, the army was not only an institution of discipline, but also a path to social mobility and a source of belonging. As war approached, Germany possessed an army that was prepared both technologically and organizationally. Yet this very readiness also revealed a significant vulnerability: the military plans lacked flexibility. The central blueprint for Germany's wartime strategy was the Schlieffen Plan, named after former Chief of the General Staff Alfred von Schlieffen, who retired in 1906. The plan was designed for a scenario in which Germany would have to fight both France in the west and Russia in the east simultaneously. Bismarck's intricate system of diplomatic alliances had collapsed, and Germany increasingly saw itself as isolated and encircled. Schlieffen sought a solution based on swift, decisive action. His core assumption was that Russia, due to its vast geography and underdeveloped infrastructure, would require several weeks, possibly months, to fully mobilize. Therefore, Germany should focus all its strength on the Western Front in the opening days of the war, aiming for a rapid and crushing victory over France. The plan envisioned a sweeping flanking maneuver through Belgium, designed to encircle and quickly capture Paris. Once France was neutralized, German forces would then be shifted eastward to confront Russia. In essence, the plan was an asymmetric attack strategy. The Schlieffen Plan was not merely a military operation blueprint, it was a psychological belief system. Schlieffen emphasized the time-sensitive nature of the plan, writing, "Our right wing must sweep through France and crush the enemy. Everything depends on the speed of this operation." In his retirement, he continued to stress this point with prophetic urgency. Strengthen, strengthen, strengthen the right wing. When the time came to execute the plan, the younger Moltke would make a fatal error, the Schlieffen Plan. By 1914, Germany had become the second largest industrial power in the world, behind only the United States, and the leading economy in Europe, surpassing even Britain in industrial output. The country was producing enormous quantities of steel, coal, chemicals, and electricity. This economic growth also fueled Germany's political ambitions, now a power seeking its place in the sun. The German Empire sought to translate its industrial supremacy into political influence, challenging Britain's naval dominance, France's colonial empire, and Russia's massive population. This ambition became one of the key factors that would help ignite the war that would change history in 1914.